Okay. Hi, Layla.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy that you're here, honestly. And you're the first person I ever interviewed. And now here we are, like 5 years later.
Imagine.
5 years later, because it was 2019.
I was pregnant.
You were pregnant with Aisha, your first baby.
Yep.
And it
apparently
was
I was heavily pregnant.
You think you were heavily pregnant? I feel like you looked like really, really like cute.
Great.
And it was cold. It was London.
Winter.
It was before COVID.
Yeah.
And you were the first person I ever interviewed, and we spoke about like your journey with PCOS.
Yep.
And all of that, but we're not going to be talking about that today because I feel like you talk about
I
that.
feel like I've spoken about it on every single podcast.
Like every podcast, they ask you about PCOS, which is great, and you raise so much awareness around that.
Yeah.
And I love that so many other women are raising awareness around PCOS. Mm-hmm. But today, what I wanted to talk to you about was things like motherhood, nutrition, and motherhood. Like, how do you bring that into your children's lives? And also postpartum, right? Like a lot of moms, after giving birth, like, what do they eat? How should they eat? Like, are there tips that you have for them? So maybe we can start with that, given that's where we left things off.
Yes.
You know, last time we...
Being pregnant for the
first time. And now you have two beautiful girls. I feel like they look like you.
They're so cute. They're so funny. They really are like a little comedy show because they're only 2 years apart. And now that Amita's caught up, she's part of the situation now. She can hold her own for sure. Yeah. Aisha thinks she's her mom.
Okay.
So she kind of instructs her all day. It's really funny. So the dynamic is hilarious.
That is really funny.
It's really funny.
So the first one thing, she's the mom.
She's like, Amita, you need to eat now. It's your lunchtime. And she will tell her what to do. And Amita just is looking at her like, what do you, she doesn't listen to anyone. She doesn't listen to anyone in the house. So it's very funny.
Is
so
it true what they say about the second born?
That they're wild?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
She doesn't listen to anybody.
Okay.
We're learning that. She's only 2. I mean, she's very little. And she's a feisty one. For sure. I have 2 little feisty girls in the house. They run the house.
I love
Not
that.
me. Like, I try, but it's hard. It's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cute, though, to have, like, girls. I feel like girls are amazing.
They're so sweet.
Yeah.
They melt Ahmed. Ahmed's just, he's done. Like, they're just, they have him wrapped around their little pinky fingers.
Girl's dad.
Girl dad all the way. He's like, if you give me more girls, like, I'm good. Like, this is lovely. Yeah. So it's amazing.
That's so special.
Yeah, it's really sweet.
Yeah.
So going back, so postpartum.
Yeah.
About, kind of, you were saying what to eat and tips and tricks and all
of that.
Yeah,
I feel like it's such an interesting topic and one that I know some people talk about, but it's not spoken about often.
Yeah.
And there are things that women can do sometimes in order to produce more milk like just get their hormones back in check because they're obviously going through such a shift with their hormones. And yeah, I just feel like you have to adapt to the season of life that you're in. And this is a whole new season that a lot of women aren't familiar with, obviously. So just I would ask you about that.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like this is now being spoken about, I think, more than when I was pregnant, even the second time. I feel like currently there's a lot of women discussing it, which is amazing. Just in general, I think topics are being more brought up on social media. I think people are much more open, which is great. Postpartum for me personally, both times was very different. The first time I think might always be a little harder because you have no idea. You're just a blank canvas and you don't know what to expect. So I went through it with Aisha thinking I was okay. And I think I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm fine. I don't think I was fine. I mean, I was crying a lot and my emotions were all over the place and I was not wanting to leave my house. Obviously at the time it was winter in London, was freezing, didn't exactly appetize me to go out. Ahmed had to kind of drag me out just to go for a walk. So I think you think you're okay, but sometimes you're not. And that's okay. You're going through, as you said, like the hormone dip is real. It's a big dip of hormones all at once. And if you're breastfeeding, it can kind of mess with you emotionally as well. So, and I was breastfeeding. So I think first time around, I didn't realize that I was going through a bit of the postpartum blues, let's say. And once I stopped breastfeeding, which was around 5.5 months, something like that, I felt really low for about a month and my cycle wasn't back yet. So I think that had a part to play in it. And I went to the doctor and I was like, I'm not okay. What do I do? Like, I just felt really low. Like my mood was really bad. And I get moody. So I understood that, you can have mood swings. And I went to the doctor. I just went to my GP in London. I was like, what do I do? Help me. Like, is something wrong in my blood work? Like, let's do blood tests. Let's just see if something's low or imbalanced. And he asked me, he's like, have you gotten your cycle back after pregnancy? I was like, no. He's like, okay, when you get it back, wait 1 month. And then if you still feel like this, come back to me. And I was like, okay. So a month after I stopped breastfeeding, I got my cycle back, and I promised, like, within a week, I just felt back to normal. It was insane. It was insane how eye-opening that was, because I didn't know that. Nobody ever told me anything about that. Some people get their period while they're breastfeeding. Some people get it a year after they, get deliver. Everyone's so different. So I never really thought about that. So that really helped me understand, like, oh, okay, that's probably what it was. Your hormones just needed to regulate, basically. And then the second time around, with Amira, I knew what was coming. I think the second time, the third, fourth, whatever, however many times you're pregnant, you understand it, and you understand your body, and you can see what's going on. So second time around, I was good. I was like having dinner 3 days after my delivery. I was like, let's go out. Let's go have some sushi. Let's go out for a date night. I was fine.
Okay.
It was obviously still stuff happening, but I was aware. First time I had no idea. Like, I don't think anyone does.
I feel like, like as much as you want to study and learn and like get into things,
you're winging it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can read all you want, but I think everyone experiences it differently. People ask me, what can we read while we're pregnant to kind of prepare us? And I was like, firstly, I never read anything.
Okay.
This is my personal approach. You don't have to listen to me, but this is my approach. I don't like to kind of take other people's experiences as my own when they're pregnant, because I wanted to experience pregnancy myself. And I don't want to read about another woman's experience and then take that on. You know what I mean?
No, I think that's totally valid, by the way, because then it's like you're learning from your own direct experience versus like another person's experience that can be so different to your own. I mean,
and I don't relate to it.
You don't relate to it. You don't relate to
why. I mean, if you have like medical questions, just ask your doctor. You don't need to read a book that a woman went through X, Y, and Z. Just because she went through that doesn't mean you're going to go through it. Obviously, you need to be aware of certain things for sure, and things you need to be careful of, and things not to eat, and basic things like that. Take it from your doctor. Just ask your doctor those questions. You don't need to read 10 books about that. So I personally didn't read anything. Okay. And I always tell women the same thing. I'm like, I don't think you should alter your experience. Just live it and go through it. That's you're going to be your journey. And then if somebody asks me now about my pregnancy, or a friend gets pregnant or whatever, I then pass on certain facts to them. But it's not like I don't want to put my experience onto them. I think everyone needs to go through it
on their own.
Yeah. I really believe that.
I mean, life is your best teacher all the time.
100%.
So I feel like you kind of did that too. Not kind of, but you did do that with PCOS, right? Like, you went through it yourself. You figured it out for yourself, and you found your own unique approach based on the experiences that you went through, versus like going and following whatever was being told to you or reading too much into it, and then maybe not even finding the solution for yourself and then being able to help people with it.
It's hard. You can't really copy a exact treatment or style. You have to take things from everywhere and then be like, okay, this is the right thing for me. So it's not one way. It's not one size fits all, especially with the PCOS, for sure. Like, what worked for me isn't necessarily going to be exactly the same method that will work for someone else.
Yeah, and I would say the same thing with postpartum, and like, you also teach a lot about like intuitive eating, right? So I guess like it's because this is your approach about listening to your body, and maybe you want to talk a bit about that too, like,
for sure,
what does that look like, right, in your life and in your children's life? Because how do you teach them to eat intuitively when they're like 2 and 5 years old?
So first about intuitive eating, I'll tell you about that before we, and then I'll explain sort of how it trickled into my kids. Because obviously it starts with, I think all children's nutrition obviously starts with either the mom or the dad, right? It comes from your house. What you know about food, what I know about food stems from my household and how I grew up. Obviously it evolves when you become an adult. But what I mean is the basics come from my household. And I really think that we were always, it was a very, from my childhood, it was always a very open way of eating. We eat whatever is there. It wasn't like, you know, if I don't want to eat this, there's, oh, I'll make you something else. No, it was like, this is food, this is lunch, this is dinner. That's it. And we kind of learned to adapt to eating everything, which was great, because I think you shouldn't be too selective when you're young. I think kids should get everything. They should be eating whatever they crave, and then if they don't like something, that's also fine. Like Aisha's a very picky eater, Amita's not a picky eater. Each child's super different. Yet I did the exact same thing with both kids in terms of like, you know, baby-led weaning and how I fed them as babies. I did the exact same thing. Yet look at how different they are. So it's very interesting because Aisha's very like Ahmed.
Okay.
She has the exact same taste buds. They like her favorite food is pesto pasta. That's Ahmed's favorite food.
Oh my God, that's my favorite food too.
It's her obsession in life. And Amina's like probably thinking like, why are we always eating pesto pasta? Like she's like looking at this green pasta. She's like, again? Like it's so funny. And she sometimes asks for something else because she's seriously over pesto pasta.
Okay.
She has the same taste buds as Ahmed. And then Amina's me.
Okay.
She's literally my little clone because I'm a foodie. I love food. I'm such a foodie. I was like eating caviar at 3.
Okay.
Like I was eating sushi probably even younger than that. Like I just loved food. Okay. I was a foodie. I was a little like chunky little baby. It was so funny. So Amita's like me. Amita has my taste buds. Yet I did the same thing with both kids. Okay. So I think no matter what you do as a mom, obviously I'm trying my best to be open with them and expose them to everything. Of course, healthy food. I'm not exposing them to processed food at all, which I know is very controversial. I know everyone's very different. I'm not saying, you know, it's wrong to expose them to that type of thing, but until I can control that, I will, because they're going to eat that food eventually. They're going to get to that phase in life where I'm no longer in control, and that's okay. That's fine. But I want them to understand that in our house, this is what's available. So they have cookies and they have chips and they have all these treats, but it's, you know, the good ingredients. It's not sort of the processed stuff. So they are eating those things, but they're just not eating the processed kind of chemical filled stuff. So and that's the way I compromise with them. So if they're at a birthday party, they're at a friend's house, I'm out. They can eat whatever they want. I will never be that mom that's like, you know, don't let them eat this and don't let them eat that. No, I'm not going to do that. I know moms like that. And I find that it makes your child feel like they are weird. You don't want your child to feel like I'm missing out, or I can't eat with my friends, or I never want to do that. So I'm very careful. If they're at a birthday party, I try to just step back and be like, okay, eat your cake, eat your sugar, like get it out of your system. Like I don't say anything. I'm just like, eat your cake. It's totally fine.
Do you find that they enjoy it when they do? Yeah, they do.
My kids love cake and treats and desserts, and that's fine. A lot of the times Aisha doesn't eat half of the stuff because, again, she's quite picky. Yeah, she's very picky. Amita will eat anything. Okay. Anything at all. So I think it's about knowing when to step back as a mom and be like, it's not in your control. It's okay. And let them eat the thing that they're not allowed to eat, whatever that is. If it's sugar, let them have sugar. It's not a big deal. But how much are they eating? Is it every day? Is it twice a day? Then it becomes, okay, let's have a conversation. Let's change that food. Have the cake. My kids eat cake every day, literally, but it's homemade. It's made with honey. It's not made with white sugar. It's made with, you know, good quality eggs and good quality flour. It's not sort of processed food. Don't go to the supermarket and buy the stuff. Just make it at home and get really good ingredients. So I think my kids will appreciate that at some point, hopefully when they're older, that, you know, mommy made good food in the house because I live in the kitchen, basically.
Yeah, you do. And by the way, like your recipes are amazing, and you have 2 books already.
Yes.
To like help people on their journeys, whether it was like through PCOS or intuitive eating. And you also have like these amazing courses that you share with people and that you do like on a monthly basis. And it's personalized as well, right? Like if someone is in your group, but they want something a bit more personal, they also get that. So
I have obviously 2 different services, you can say. One is the one-on-one programs, which are totally personalized. So if somebody comes to me and says, I have PCOS, I want to work on my hormones, or I want to lose weight, or I have skin problems, or just energy issues, everyone has something, right? I mean, otherwise sadly, they don't come to me until it's like bad, right? Okay. You wait until things get bad, until you do something about it, which unfortunately is not the right approach, because you shouldn't wait for things to be kind of too bad. You should do it when you're still halfway, kind of like, oh, something's off, let's fix it now. Because once you wait until it's really, really bad, it's harder to get out of that, I don't want to say hole, but kind of, you know, pull yourself out. So a lot of people tend to wait until things are quite intense. The symptoms are quite intense. And obviously everyone's program looks so different. And then I have the group programs, which have been a later development, more recent. I started, I think, in November of last year. And those have been amazing. And the reason I created them was because I had a lot of requests for one-on-ones, but they're not feasible for everybody. And my whole goal in this whole nutrition and why I went into nutrition was for me at the time. And then I wanted to help people feel as good as I eventually felt. And helping as many people as possible is my goal. And I know that the one-on-ones are not always going to be available to everyone. So this is a great way for me to connect with, firstly, more people in one group setting, and it's more feasible. So it's a win-win. So it's not necessarily, of course, if somebody comes and says, you know, I'm vegan, but I want to do your program, of course, I'll explain how to do it vegan, because that's happened before.
Yeah, I think I saw that in your Q&A.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's fine. So of course I'll modify it for, you know, that person. I'll just tell them what to do. But it's not necessarily as personalized, but of course, if there's something like that, I'll edit for them. But it's amazing. And the results have been incredible.
Yeah, I love reading your testimonials, by the way. They're so nice.
That just gives me like all the reassurance I need. I'm like, okay, let's keep going. Let's keep going, because it really motivates me when people feel good. So it's amazing. I'm really happy with the programs.
No, I love it.
Yeah.
It's so cool. And hopefully like the people that join can also see how that changes their relationship to food. I feel like that's the biggest thing, right? It's
the biggest one.
How do you relate to food? How do you see food? And of course, there are phases in your life where you might be eating food because you're emotionally eating, or you're going through a stressful period. At least for me, when I'm stressed, it happens that I don't eat.
I'm the same.
I don't feed myself.
I'm
it's
the same.
Just like everything. I can't eat.
I lose my appetite.
I lose my appetite. When I'm happy, I can maybe overindulge and overeat. If I'm sad, I crave sugar. And I start to see these things.
Patterns.
And it's true because it all stems from childhood. That's why I feel like, you know, talking about kids and like how you're choosing to bring up your daughters with food. And I love that you mentioned that you don't restrict them with food, because when I was younger, I wasn't restricted with anything. Okay, fair enough. I developed a lot of food intolerances.
Well, that's not related, is it? I don't know.
I don't feel like it's 100% related to that. I think it was more related to like the rounds of antibiotics I did.
And your gut health.
And and maybe being born a C-section, like not being breastfed. Like those things do affect like your gut flora for sure.
Definitely.
And again, not to blame anyone about it, obviously, but it's more so to say like there are things that do create gut imbalances.
Totally.
And
antibiotics is a big one.
Antibiotics is huge.
Taking a probiotic. I give my kids probiotics every day.
You do already?
I do already. I did it since birth.
Okay.
I give them, you know, vitamin D with K. Okay. I give them a liquid multivitamin, which a little controversial. You don't have to do that, but they're in school, which is, you know, I want their immunity to be as strong as possible, because in school there's a lot of stuff going around.
Yeah. Do you feel they get, sorry to interrupt, but do you feel like they get less sick than other kids?
I think such a controversial topic. I think vaccinating really messed with my kids' immunity.
Interesting.
It's very interesting. I know this is a big topic. So
I mean, I like controversial topics.
I've vaccinated my kids. I was vaccinated as a child.
I was too.
Yeah. So it's not to say that I'm against vaccines and I'm an anti-vaxxer. I'm not. Okay, I've done it. But I noticed that Amira did her last round of vaccines I think she was like a year old. Now she's 2. And there hasn't been, there's a couple that she's missing. There's like a couple of booster shots that she hasn't had yet, because there's so many booster shots, right? So she's had everything, at least a single dose of everything. So that's fine. But there's a couple of ones that she missed, and I realized since she didn't miss them. I purposely missed them. Okay, it wasn't like she missed her appointment.
I mean,
Mommy missed the appointment. She
not
didn't
drive
have to walk on up to
herself.
them. You know what I mean? So I didn't do them. I don't know. I just had this instinct in me. Because I think first time around as a mom, you don't really have that. You have maternal instincts, don't get me wrong, but they're not as, you don't trust them as much because you don't know. You just have one kid at the time. And I just followed everyone. Like, it was, okay, what's my sister doing? What's my brother doing? What did my mom do? And I kind of just did the thing that I thought was right. Second time around, I had a stronger instincts, you can say, and I followed that. And I didn't do them. And it was just boosters. I mean, she just had everything. Single dose. I'm good with that. I'm comfortable. And I have realized a massive difference in immunity. Massive.
Okay.
Massive.
So like Amina's immunity is better because she didn't do the boosters.
This is my opinion.
Okay.
I don't know.
So meaning she's not getting as sick going to school with the viruses and all of that and catching those things.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah.
Okay.
So I really have noticed a difference in her immunity as opposed to Aisha's immunity.
Okay.
Which is crazy. So
it's very interesting.
You have to learn your kids, right? Each kid's different. It's not like, she eats more fruits and vegetables. Aisha doesn't.
Okay.
So there's a lot that goes into that, not just the vaccines, but I think it's a factor.
Okay.
So I don't know. I think everyone just needs to be more aware of what we're doing. Like, yes, you can follow your doctor. Don't get me wrong. Follow your doctor's advice. Like, I'm not a doctor. I'm not here to tell you what to do. But I think it's good to be aware.
Yeah.
And be aware of what we're giving our kids, especially with food, because like what we're giving them in terms of snacks and sugars and, food coloring and seed oils, the list goes on. Like it just goes on and on and on. And it's leading to things like ADHD, behavioral issues. It's insane. It's really like I can just keep going. So what you're feeding your kids is directly impacting them. In school, in learning, in attitude, in behavior. It's amazing, really.
It is amazing.
Just be mindful. Be more mindful of what we give our kids, I think is a good message.
Yeah.
in all aspects.
I don't know. I feel like perhaps down the line, it could be really interesting to create something for moms and kids. For moms.
That's my biggest request, actually.
I feel like it's so interesting.
With kids stuff, I get nervous because some moms are... I'm a mom. I'm scary if I want to be with certain things. Like if someone does something wrong with my kids, I lose it. So I'm nervous to kind of go into that community in case, something's not received well. The mom community isn't always an easy place
they have to
be.
sign like a contract.
Like, you can't come after me. Like, please and thanks. So I get a bit nervous to go into kid stuff because it's a very delicate field, you can say, because everybody loves you love your kids. So in case something, I don't know, happens with a recipe or something, I wouldn't want to be, it's a lot of responsibility. So I think I would want to do that. I would definitely need to get more certification in kids and children's nutrition because I don't have that. I'm kind of just following
You're following your own gut feelings and you're seeing how it's affecting your children. And
I do research and stuff, but I don't have the correct credibility yet.
Yeah.
So I think I would want to do that. That's my next one.
Yeah, I feel like that's
maybe when I'm done having kids. Yeah. That's my next accomplishment.
Next phase of life.
Exactly.
Next phase of life.
But
it's something that you're already planting seeds for because you're actually putting it into action.
And testing with them. I test with my kids.
And you test with your kids.
They're like my little guinea pigs.
It's
so funny.
At least
try this supplement. Try this probiotic. Of course they're all children's stuff.
Yeah.
But I like to see what works and what doesn't because not everything that's marketed as a children's supplement is going to be good, obviously, right? So it's important to know and try and see what's actually working.
What are if you had to say 3 tips for food for kids, what would they be?
So I think the biggest one for me is sugar. Honestly, I don't think people realize the damage that comes from sugar. And when I say sugar, I don't mean natural sugar. I'm not talking about fruit and honey and maple syrup. Those are amazing. So those are your best friend because at the end of the day, they're kids and they need sugar. They need that energy from good quality natural sugar. So that's what I give my kids daily. That's fine. I'm talking about processed things like glucose syrups, white sugar, obviously, brown rice syrups, all these syrups, like all of these processed fructose and I don't know what, like all of those.
The ingredients you can't read at the back of the...
Imagine what it does to adults, okay? We're like strong and big and we've evolved, right? They're tiny little kids and it really is causing damage. And this is why there's been so much rise in certain things, such as ADHD being one of them. There's a few more, I'm blanking on the others, but there's been a rise in different things in children's health. And I strongly think it's to do with the fact that our food now has become poison. What we see in supermarkets and what we see in, it looks so pretty. The marketing's great and it says like healthy and, you know, high protein. And you look at the back and I'm like, oh my gosh. Even for adults, by the way, this applies for everyone. This is not just for kids.
Yeah, this is for everyone. I mean, even I noticed this.
For kids. Yeah. These poor kids are just, you know, but mommy, I want it. I'm like, well, give them an alternative. Give them chips and cookies and biscuits. I give my kids that all the time, but just look at the back. You know, they don't need to be having that amount of sugar. If you're at a birthday party once a month, cool. That's fine. Their bodies can process that. When Aisha eats cake, because normal cake, not my cake, like a birthday cake, you know how much sugar goes into those birthday cakes? You know how sweet they are?
Yeah.
You can smell it. Like I go to a birthday, I'm like, whoa, it smells great. But
it gives you a bit of a headache. At least for me, it's like...
Same, headache. Same. And I go home and usually the birthdays are in the evening. So we get home by 6, her bedtime's at 7. She doesn't go to sleep until like 10 or like 9 p.m. She's just in bed like singing and rolling around because she's literally on a sugar high. She's asleep by 7 usually. It's insane. So the effect that sugar has on this, Aisha's tiny. She's really petite as well, like a poor thing. And it's insane. So I really noticed the difference between natural sugar and processed sugar. So I would say sugar, watch out. Give it to them, but don't give it to them every single day. And if you do give it to them, try to give them the better alternatives.
Yeah.
And then I sneak vegetables into a lot of things because Aisha's specifically, Amira loves veggies. Aisha doesn't. So I sneak them in a lot. So what I do, I don't do too much because she can taste it. So I'll, you know, steam some broccoli and I'll blend it into her pesto sauce, for example, because it's green.
Because she loves pesto sauce.
She loves pesto sauce. Usually everything I hide is in pesto because I'm like, she'll eat it anyway. So it's fine. It's my safe food with her. And I just sneak in one vegetable here and there.
Okay.
Or if I'm giving her like a red sauce, like fasulia or something, I'll do steamed carrots and I'll blend it in the tomato sauce because she can't see it.
Yeah.
So that's another little trick that I do. Yeah, Amita's fine. I can just give her broccoli and she'll eat it. But Aisha won't do that.
Yeah, it's also so interesting and fascinating how you have people that just gravitate towards different foods.
For sure, which is fine.
Obviously.
I'm totally fine with, you know, Aisha eats really well. She eats great food. It's just that, you know, certain things might be missing from her diet. So we try our best to kind of give her, I think everything in moderation is very important and a little bit of everything is very important. So as long as they're getting a little bit of everything, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And then sneaking in like ground walnuts into her oatmeal.
Okay.
Little tricks like that. And she doesn't notice. So
I like that.
I'll tell her one day. I feel bad lying, but you know, I'll tell her one day.
I don't think it's a big lie, to be fair.
It's a white lie. She likes it.
Yeah,
she's eating
it's not like she's saying she doesn't like it.
Exactly. We never force.
Yeah.
Never force.
Okay.
I don't believe in that.
Yeah.
And then the last one is snacking. Snacking, even for adults. I tell this to my clients, like this is not a child thing, but of course it does apply to children.
I love it. We're applying all of the things for adults to kids.
Literally, it's the same thing. I literally tell
we're literally grown kids.
I have to retrain my clients because what a lot of you might have heard this is like, you know, have your breakfast, then have a snack, then have lunch, then have a snack, and then have dinner, then have a snack. And I'm like, when did we get all of these snacks? What that is that you eat small meals because, you know, some dietitians and whatever, they are like, oh, well, if you want to lose weight, you have to eat small meals because you're eating less calories, right? Like this is kind of the logic. But then you're hungry, so you need a snack. And then you have another small meal, but then you're still hungry, so you have another snack. So I don't believe in this method. This method for me needs to be like thrown out a window, okay? And I don't think people will like me for this, but it's the truth. All you're doing by doing this is keeping your insulin and glucose levels up. That's it. And what's that doing? Destroying your hormones, especially women. So women, please, like, stop snacking. Please stop snacking. Like, it's just not doing you any favors. All you do is you eat 3 good meals. If you're hungry after lunch, you didn't eat enough. If you're hungry between lunch and dinner, your meal was not enough. Simple.
There was something missing.
Something's missing. You either didn't have any carbs, which is very common, or you didn't eat enough protein. Also very common.
Yeah. Or you're detoxing from like candida.
Yes, possible. Or it's something else.
You know, because that's definitely happened to me. Like I'd eat a ton of food, but it's not the food that I'm used to eating.
Yeah,
and I'd be starving.
You're like, what is this?
What is this? And like I'm hungry like an hour later.
There's an exception. There's always exceptions to this rule, but generally, and it applies to kids. So my kids, because their hours are very long, because they're up at 7, they have breakfast at 7:10, let's say, then they have school. In school, they have one snack, and then they have lunch. Then they come home and they have one snack at 3, and then they have dinner at 6 or 5:30. So they do have one snack in between, then that's totally fine. And their snacks, I try to give them sort of, you know, good snacks. Like Amida's usually having fruits and veggies. Aisha not so much, but it's okay. But for adults, you need to be full. And if you're not full, that's a problem. So we need to understand why you're not full, because something's not working with your meals. Yeah, so that's my biggest tip with kids. Try not to let them graze all day and not have meals, because it's a cycle. If they're not hungry, it's because they're snacking.
Yeah.
So they're not going to eat well, but then they're going to snack. So it's this, you have to break that cycle.
It's super interesting, because then that also means what, like fruits are a snack.
Well, listen, fruits and veggies for me are always allowed.
Okay.
Right? Not like all day, but if Amida ever comes to me, you know, at dinner time and she sees fruits on the counter, I'll put them on her dinner plate.
Okay.
So they're always allowed, no matter what. Aisha won't touch them, so I don't have that issue with her yet. Hopefully she'll go back to eating them, but not yet. Whereas Amida, if she sees me, you know, I'm making a tuna salad and I'm cutting a pickle, she's like, I want one. I'm like, okay, here's a pickle. And it's fine. I let her eat while I'm preparing my food. So I don't mind that. But in terms of snacks, like one between breakfast and lunch and one between lunch and dinner. And that's it. So you have your snack time and then that's it. And then you have to wait for dinner. And I think that's a good way of creating discipline.
Yeah.
And they don't ask me anymore. Like they'll never come up to me and ask me for another snack because they know I'm going to say no.
Yeah. It's interesting you say discipline, right? Because obviously we look at food as a lot of people, at least for me, it's like this great joy, right? Yeah. To like eat. Indulge. And then you put like discipline with like
what?
Eating and you're like, wait, like why do I have to be disciplined around my food? But there is a lot of truth to that too, right? Because again, I do believe that we are eating way more than we should nowadays in comparison to the past. We have a lot more variety too, and we have access to all types of foods all year long. So whereas before, let's say our ancestors ate local, seasonal foods, now we're eating like
everything
all year long. And we don't even have the correct bacteria in order to digest that food that we're...
That's why everyone's immunity is so messed up.
Yeah.
Because of especially in the UAE, or not even the UAE, just in our region, I think, in general, because it was the same in Jordan. Jordan was a little bit more seasonal, like Beirut, I think, in terms of produce. Whereas here, most things are imported. Now it's become much better.
Now there are stuff. Yeah,
I do see made in the UAE, and I'm like, yes, like we're buying them. Me and Ahmed, like we much prefer to buy local because you're supposed to eat from where you're living in order to get like you said, the right gut bacteria, and then also just for your immune system. So it's the same concept with honey. You're never supposed to buy honey from outside. You're always supposed to have local honey. Because that's the pollen that you need for anti-allergies and to kind of not get allergies to the whatever, dust here or whatever it is. Like you're supposed to have honey from where you live. Okay. Same concept applies for produce. So I always buy local. Now it's much easier. The ages ago when I used to live here, whatever it was, 10 years ago before I moved, it wasn't the same. Everything was imported. Yeah. So I think that's why here specifically there's a big issue with immunity. Don't you realize everyone's always sick? Every week.
By the way, yes.
It's insane.
Like, there's always a friend of mine.
Everyone's always sick. And I'm like, guys, like what's happening? Yeah. So I don't think it's a coincidence. There's a reason here the immunity is lower.
It is really interesting because the thing is, like, I'm not going to lie. I was very, very disciplined for a very long time with my food.
You had to be as well.
I had to be because of candida and all of that. And
that was nasty.
It was pretty intense. Yeah. But then interestingly, I've become a lot more like lenient with things, for sure. I'm a lot less like strict when I go to a restaurant. I stop asking about like gluten
What's
in
it?
here and stuff. Like, it depends. I won't have like a lot of it, but if it's like in a sauce or something, I'll have a bit, or at least I'm a bit more flexible.
You're flexible.
Yeah. But it's interesting because I also have been less disciplined with
which is normal.
Supplements, for example.
Same.
You know, I'm not gonna lie and say I take my supplements.
I don't take my
every
supplements
day.
either. I'm very bad. I'm terrible.
They're there in my bathroom, and I tell myself like, okay, come on, like today's the
Maria.
day. Like today you can do it.
Yeah.
And when I get to it, I'm like, oh no, you know, and then I forget which supplements am I supposed to take. I'm confused.
I know.
And if you open my cabinet, it's full, literally, it's stacked.
You have them
of supplements.
But you know what? I think because of what me and you experienced, you went through Candida, I went through PCOS, which required a whole, not just a lifestyle change. Like we were. Like, guys, I don't think you realize, like, we couldn't eat.
Yeah.
Like, for a long time, not couldn't eat, but we couldn't eat a lot of things. So I cut out gluten and dairy and sugar for almost 3 years. Then I was vegan for a year. Then I was pescatarian for another year. Like, it's been a journey.
Yeah.
Until I realized that what works for my body. You went through something similar.
Mm-hmm.
I had to take like 14 pill boxes of supplements. Same for you.
Same.
So now I'm at a point where I'm over it. I'm like, I'm just going to eat really well.
Yeah.
Obviously, I take certain supplements. Like I take wellness pills for my immune system. If I'm feeling a little bit off or run down, I'll take them.
Mm-hmm.
Electrolytes, I take my electrolytes. Like I take basics.
Yeah.
But I definitely, like I get it. Because I think of what we went through though.
Yeah. I feel like there's been like a bit of a resistance towards taking it as consistently.
I get it.
However, the point of this is also like, now maybe I'm going to like, I'm going to knock on my head, but I feel like
you don't need it. You don't need it as much.
Get as like sick or affected by
because
things.
of what we did for years.
Yeah.
I think that makes a huge difference because we managed to detox from all the foods, all the medications, all the environmental pollutants around us. Like we really went hard. Mm-hmm. And when you do that for such a long period of time, you're allowed to be flexible. Mm-hmm. So with my clients, for example, that come to me and they feel horrible and they gained a bunch of weight and they have acne and they have all the symptoms, right? I tell them like, guys, right now you can't be flexible because every like second makes a difference right now. But eventually, when you're feeling better, you can be more flexible. So it's about the amount of time we did. How many years did you do that for?
I did it for like
3.
No,
4?
since I saw you. No,
it was
like
a while.
when you were pregnant, like 2019. Before that, I started before that.
Yeah, it was a long time.
That's like 5 years.
Exactly.
No, it was a very long time. And my friends, they used to joke around. They're like, we didn't take enough advantage of you before when you used to eat everything.
When you were fun. Yeah,
when you were fun and ate
I
everything and drank everything. And I'm like, yeah, but I can't do that anymore. No. Like, there's no way.
You can't take it.
No.
Yeah. And you know your body. You know your limits though with being flexible.
I know my limits with my flexibility.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to take these things right now and eat them in the same ways that I did before.
There's no overindulgence. No.
No.
And what I always say to friends, clients, I'm like, you get over the hype around, like, oh, people come to me, they're like, what, you don't crave dessert, you don't miss it. I'm like, no. Because I make my own stuff at home. If I really want something, I'll make it at home and I get my satisfaction there. And it makes me feel good. I don't feel bloated. I don't get headaches. I feel great. So I don't need to have that stuff. So I don't miss it. So I'm not deprived. This is important to note. There's no deprivation involved.
Oh, it doesn't feel like deprivation.
Exactly.
And I feel like that's where people don't
get it. They think it's,
yeah.
Oh, you poor thing. I'm like, no. Wallah, no. Like, I'm really good. Like, I promise. And I think people, when they cut out sugar, because all my clients cut out sugar, happily, by the way, they're not miserable at all, I promise. They don't reintroduce it. Like, I have clients messaging me now from September. Where are we now? April? Like months and months and months ago.
Yeah,
and they're like, we're still not eating sugar.
Yeah.
And I've never felt better in my life. And I'm like, there you go. Just one change. Even if you don't do all the changes and you just do that. So
that's the biggest
change. It's easier than you
honestly.
think. It takes 1 week.
Yeah.
1 week for my clients to stop craving sugar. 1 week.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's not that hard. I think people think it's really miserable to live without it. I promise you it's not. And if you want to have a bite of something, go for it. But to eat sugar and sugar and sugar, that's a problem. And it's going to mess with you at some point. You're like, I'm doing that. Are you eating sugar, Maria? Are you eating a lot
So
of
the
sugar?
thing is, like, I don't believe that I'm eating the white processed sugar.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I have to say, so for example, there's like this cake that I got that's obviously sugar-free, dairy-free, whatever.
Oh, yeah, like a healthy cake. Okay, yeah.
However, if I eat it in the morning,
Yeah.
I feel sick.
Well, it's very sweet, I'm assuming.
I would then go to like Pilates and I'm I'm
no.
nauseous. Like I don't feel good. I can't eat this.
Well, you know your body. That's the thing.
So I know that it doesn't work for me. For example, if I eat even an acai bowl in the morning and I make it like sugar-free, I will still feel off.
Well, there you go.
And I crash.
That tells you everything, that just because it's healthy doesn't make it good for everyone.
No.
So I have clients who can't eat chicken. And they don't eat chicken. They can't. They're like, I feel so sick. I'm like, chicken. Like, that's so interesting. Eggs, chicken, sugar, types of sugar,
eggs,
honeys.
Forget it. I can't.
There you go.
I can't.
So everyone's different. You cannot ever just be like, gluten is bad. Don't eat gluten, because gluten's fine for me.
Yeah.
I eat gluten. I eat certain types of gluten, not all the types of gluten, but I eat it and I'm okay. So you can never label something as bad and that's it. You can't just be like, okay, this is bad, close the door. Because every single person has a different reaction to food. And this is what I work with.
Yeah.
So it's very dependent on the person.
And it's also dependent on the person's mood.
Totally.
Funny enough, right?
And their time of the month.
Yeah.
Their emotional status.
Yeah.
There's a lot. Food is very emotional, like we were saying.
Yeah.
It's a lot to do with your emotions. And if you're holding on to weight, it could be emotional. Mm-hmm. It's not always, of course, food is a factor. And of course, diet is a factor. But it could be emotional, where you're holding... It's like your safety zone almost. Mm-hmm. So when you kind of work on your emotions at the same time as food, you can lose that weight. Like it's not black and white. So I work with everybody in a very different way. It's not always linear. Put it that way. It's a very different process.
It's never going to be linear.
Yeah.
It's never going to be linear. And I remember for me, there was this one time it was interesting. I did like a very intense meditation, and there was this clear shift, and I knew there was a clear shift with my gut. And I went out that night, and I remember on my way there, I was like, oh my God, like, what if there's no food? Like these people said, like, we're gonna go have drinks, and I was like, but I didn't eat.
Oh no.
We get there and the bar only has like a few items.
Bites.
And funny enough, I thought about like, what if they only have fried chicken?
And there was
I thought that on my way there. And they only had fried chicken.
Stop it.
I swear. Like fried chicken and like pizza. And
this sounds like it's in New York. Is this in New York?
No, this was in London.
Oh.
And it was so funny because I hadn't had chicken in a long time because I was off chicken.
Yeah,
and
I
don't eat fried food because gluten.
And oil and...
And I was like, you know what? I'm hungry.
I'm going to eat it.
I'm going to eat it. And I had it. And I was drinking at the time. I don't drink anymore. So it was so interesting.
And you were fine?
I was fine.
Yeah.
But because of that meditation experience that I had that day, and I was on such a high on life. I was so happy. I was so good in my skin.
You processed it.
I processed it. The next day, woke up as if nothing.
Adi.
No
issue.
symptom, no headache.
Not crazy.
It was insane. And then interestingly, then like 2 days later, I ordered pizza.
Yeah.
And it was gluten-free. It was supposed to be gluten-free, dairy-free, all of that.
Oh no.
It came and it was neither of those things.
Lovely.
And I was like, again, I'm hungry.
I'm going to eat it.
I'm going to eat it.
Mommy's hungry.
And I honestly only had one slice.
Yeah.
And then I made them get me another slice.
Yeah.
But it was
one.
funny because, again, no symptom.
Yeah.
And this is where really like I started to understand, like, of course, there are things that, sometimes it's like what came first, the chicken or the egg? Is it like your belief system that creates these allergies and these intolerances? Or is it only the body that's creating it? And it's like, which one came first?
What's creating and why? Because
Exactly.
there's a reason.
Exactly. And in this case, it was just like really interesting to see how my body responded so differently as I was different.
Yep.
And I was
mentally
100%. Different, and I was in a better space. So I do feel like that does play a role. And that's why sometimes like people, when they're on vacation and they go and they eat the foods that they don't eat usually, they're a lot better because they're just a lot less stressed and happier. And
not so much in their head about it.
Not so much in their heads about it. And there's so many studies actually about this. Like, it was somewhere on the East Coast, and they did like research there, and they saw that there was this community of people where they didn't have high rates of heart rate disease.
Oh.
It was very low rates.
Okay.
And they're like, oh, it must be the food that they're eating.
Yeah.
Right? They go there. It wasn't the food that they were eating, because they were eating they were descendants from Italy. So they were eating like all the pizza and the pasta and the dairy and the cigarettes and the wine. And so they're like, but like how? Like every surrounding town has really high rates of heart rate
So what
disease.
was special?
What was special was that they lived in community, that like they lived with families. So like the grandparents lived with the kids, and the kids, if they had work, they could leave them with the grandkids. And if they have an issue, so it was just this
Community vibes.
community vibe.
That's so nice.
And
It's interesting.
It's super interesting to think about too, right? Like how love in your life, in whatever capacity it may be, can create this sense of security within your body. And then interestingly, they went back to this town and saw that the rates changed and there were higher rates again. And it's because all of the kids had grown up and they left their homes.
That's so sad.
So they were not there anymore. They weren't as happy anymore.
That's so sad.
And there's a lot of research like that from like the big schools in the US and whatever. Not that we listen to everything they say, but
no, we really don't. But you know, it's interesting to read about
these things. And I remember I learned about this when I was doing my health coaching program. I was like, whoa, it's interesting. And then I saw it happen in my life. And that's why I feel like, yes, a certain degree of flexibility is nice,
100%.
but also meet yourself where you are.
You have to be logical, right? It's not black and white. So yes, be flexible, but also listen to your body. Don't listen to people being like, eat this, but why aren't you eating that? Ignore them. You know, don't do what other people think you should do, because it's not their body. Don't listen to your mom, don't listen to your sister, don't listen to your aunt, don't listen to anyone. Because a lot of people, especially in our society, think they know what's best for their granddaughter, their niece, their whatever. Like they really think that they know best. And while that's sweet, because they think it's a nice duty to say like, you should eat this, it's going to make you strong, that food might not be working for that person. So don't listen. You know, I think everyone should trust their gut. They might not know their gut yet, and that's okay. Like they might not understand their instincts right now, but you get there. You have to practice, you have to try, you have to experiment, and then you learn your instincts. Like, oh, you know what, this cream sauce, that's gonna hurt my stomach, so I'm not gonna have that. I'm gonna have a tomato sauce instead. Like making that decision where you understand what's gonna feel good and what's not gonna feel good. Simple. And if it's, forget the word healthy, unhealthy, put that up, just forget that, because labeling a food healthy, unhealthy, good, bad, like that doesn't leave us anywhere. We can't just keep doing this. Yes, there are certain things that we should all avoid. Fine, like sunflower oil and vegetable oil and white sugar, fine. You know, you want to talk about the basic things to avoid, for sure you should avoid those things if you can, if it's possible. But then talking about, you know, pasta or pizza or, you know, simple foods that we've been eating for years and years and years. At the end of the day, anything from the earth, eat, right? This is my advice. So anything from the earth that literally God made for us, you can eat that. Anything man-made, don't eat it. It's that simple.
Isn't it crazy that we have like salmon, 3D printed salmon?
What?
Like
that's a thing?
I think so. Like they're lab made salmon or lab made chicken. This is news
to me.
Or like Beyond Meat. Remember?
Oh,
when we used to eat those
like
things?
fake meat.
Fake meat.
Oh yeah, we used
salmon.
to eat those things. I used to eat those things.
Yeah, same.
Lesson learned. I would never touch that anymore.
Yeah, it's so literally like I remember. At one point, I
got sick.
I was chewing it. I was like, why do I feel like I'm eating rubber?
It's literally like rubber.
Disgusting.
It's fake. I got sick. I got really, really sick from... I probably shouldn't do this, actually. Probably shouldn't name drop. But I got very sick from one of the big brands. And never touched it again. I got really, really ill. I was like severely poisoned. It was nasty.
Wow.
Yeah. So I stopped eating after that. But yes, I agree. Like all of these things that were... Anything that comes from the earth, go for it. And if something doesn't make you feel good, just don't eat it for now. not forever, but just for a bit of time, take a break from it. Like dairy, for example, doesn't sit well with me personally, so I don't really eat dairy. But if I ever went back to eating dairy, I'm okay with that. I'm not being strict about like, I'll never eat this again. Just never say never.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm never going to be this person that's difficult and, strict about it. Right now, dairy is still not working for me. I've tried. It made me break out and it gives me a stomachache. So cool. I'm okay with that. But still, it's from the earth, so I'm okay with eventually... If I can put it back, I would in moderation, So everyone just needs to go back to basics, I think.
Yeah, and
go
experiment.
Back to simple food and experiment. Exactly.
Experiment for yourself and try it out. If you're not feeling good,
you know,
right?
And some people they don't know what isn't making them feel good. They're like, well, I had this pasta with cream. So how do I know if it's the gluten or the cream? I'm like, individualize them. So eat the pasta with tomato sauce and then eat the cream with fish or something, and then which one was it? Usually stomach aches are most commonly from dairy. Gluten's a little bit less.
For me, gluten, it wouldn't be a stomach ache, it would be a headache.
Yes,
it would be more
inflammation
or body aches, like random aches
also
in my body. So I think that's the thing too with food, that people are luckily understanding more today than they did, but they don't associate certain symptoms with food.
Never.
Right? Like, oh, you are dizzy, has nothing to do with food. No. Oh, you're like...
You have vertigo. Go get the medication.
Exactly.
Totally.
Like you have irregular periods, has nothing to do with your food.
No, go get birth control.
Exactly. I love that. I'm gonna go. What else?
What else is there?
You're losing your hair. Oh, it's not to do with food. It's PCOS.
Exactly.
It's PCOS.
Go on birth control.
Go on birth control.
There's the thing is with doctors, and I don't want doctors to come for me because
they
I
won't
feel bad
come for you
because
they don't learn nutrition.
They don't
also.
learn nutrition, right?
Like,
they're not.
We give them the space to do what they're good at.
I've spoken to doctors on my Instagram. I've literally had conversations with certain female doctors on my Instagram, and they say that they got like 8 to 9 hours of nutrition studies in all medical school. How long is medical school? Like 8 years or something crazy? 10 years? What is it? I don't even know. 8 maybe.
It's one of those.
It's really long, whatever it is. All these years, it's 8 hours?
Yeah.
So they're not trained to give food advice. Yeah. That's it. They are trained to write a prescription. Okay, so you're not going to the doctor for anything other than a prescription. Yeah. So be aware of that. Before you go to the doctor and if you want a prescription, go to the doctor. That's it. If you don't want a prescription, go to someone else, whether it's a functional doctor who uses integrative medicine, which is what I do if I'm not feeling good and I need supplements, or a nutritionist if you want to work on your diet. Try those methods before you go for the prescription, because
I agree.
They say, like, you go to the doctor and you have something. You have, I don't know, gout or arthritis or whatever. People are getting that younger now. They're getting these weird things much younger. Why'd you think? Oh, it's genetic. It's not genetic. Of course, things can be genetically I'm spitting out words.
Predisposed.
Of course, things can be genetically predisposed to us, right? Based on our grandparents and parents. Yes, I'm not saying that's not real, but you are triggering it through diet and what you're eating and what you're consuming. So you can't just go to the doctor and be like, oh, I have this crazy pain in my body or whatever it is, and they're like, oh, you have like early stages of arthritis at 30 or 35 years old, which I've heard a lot of cases, by the way, recently. Super random. Why'd you think? You're probably inflamed. Let's work on inflammation, because pain is inflammation. Maybe you have a lot of inflammation that you need to remove from your body. That's it. And if you go on a certain diet, not diet restrictive, I mean diet like changes, you can probably remove that in 8 to 12 weeks and it's gone. I have people with back pain, chronic back pain. I have a client actually who has that, and she literally doesn't have the pain anymore. And she was on crazy medication that like made her puke and made her crazy symptoms from this medication. She's like, I'm not taking it anymore. Yeah. Migraines, people with chronic migraines, same thing. Had a client with chronic migraines. Have a diabetic client also, and she always would wake up at 4 a.m. feeling like really, really bad, like because she would go through a dip. That stopped happening. Simple diet changes. That's all it is. Try it, because you'd be surprised the wonders of food. Food can heal you, but you have to try. You have to be willing to make the changes. Most people aren't willing. They're not willing to give up certain things, and you have to get there on your own. And unfortunately, it comes down to feeling like crap.
Most people,
They're
they'll
desperate
wait till
they're
feel,
desperate.
Yeah,
That's
they
the
wait
sad
till
part.
they feel like complete crap
It's sad.
in order to go there. I
Yeah.
mean, we sometimes need that in order to make the changes. And then the trick is to understand as well that it is a lifestyle change.
For
It's not a
sure.
quick fix.
No.
It's not going to be done in like a day or two.
No.
And it's important to integrate it into your life and into your family.
Into your family.
You know, like going back to where we started, like it's a family thing, because obviously food, you want to share it with people.
And you want to also take everything you learn. Most of the people I work with are moms.
Yeah.
A lot of them are moms. And everything I give her goes to her husband and her kids. So they're all doing it together. It's a package deal. So I never want to do programs and stuff like that just for the wife or the mom. It's not about that. It's about everyone. It has to suit your household. If it doesn't suit your household, it's not going to work. Because at the end of the day, as a mom myself, I know how it is. You think of yourself last.
Yeah.
It's kids, husband, you. Okay? Yeah. That's always how it is. At least for me and a lot of moms I know. So if it doesn't work for my household, there's no way you're going to be able to sustain it. And it has to be sustainable. So all my recipes are kid-friendly recipes, husband-friendly recipes too.
Yes.
All of my recipes have been husband-approved. So Ahmed likes all my recipes.
And that, I feel like, says a lot, right?
Yes, he's picky.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
picky. That's where Aisha gets it from. So he loves food. He's a foodie.
Yeah.
So it has to make sense for the household. Otherwise, it just won't. It won't
be
continue.
sustainable, and it won't continue, and
Exactly.
it'll be very short-lived. And you want to get everybody excited as well about like what you're eating and what
Feeling
you're
good.
making
Yeah.
and feeling good. So it was by the way, it's crazy how fast the hour
We can
flew
just
by.
sit and
I can
talk
talk
and
for
talk.
so much longer.
Me too.
And talk about so many things with you. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having
and for your
me.
energy and
was so
for
fun.
all of the things that you've shared.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank
That was
you.
amazing.
It was so fun.
I love that.
Me too.
Thanks, my love.
We'll do it again.
We have to.
Yeah.
We have so many other topics, I think. We
I
can
know.
discuss.
I feel
It's
like
ridiculous.
we
just touch the surface, graze the surface. What's the phrase?
surface.
No, that's
and
wrong.
It's interesting because like a lot of the things that I also shared, I haven't shared in a while.
Yeah.
You know?
I think because you did this, we were just saying how you took a break
I took
from
a break.
podcasting.
Yeah.
And the way you were, what was it, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Versus now is so different.
It's so different.
So I think you just keep evolving. It's nice to have that because you
It
can
is.
listen to old episodes.
I know, by the way,
amazing.
I have been a bit
Yeah.
just to see like how things have
Who
changed.
was I?
Who was I 2 years
Yeah.
ago? But yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me, my love.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.